And let's stay with the oil and gas sector for a moment, as the passage of the petroleum industry bill often sounded like the silver bullet the country's oil industry needs. But as Nigerians are now finding out, there are still a lot of gray areas left unattended to. The 3% as against 5% to host communities remains a key reason for disquiet, even among senators, as Galaxy's Godfrey Shomogi now tells us in this report.
A bill for an act to provide legal governance, regulatory and fiscal framework for the Nigerian petroleum industry, the development of host communities, and for related matters 2021-30 been taken, and the bill is passed. The demons have been defeated in this chamber. We have passed the bill by the grace of God.
Here, the Nigerian Senate finally passing the petroleum industry bill after a nearly 20-year wait and conquering its self-acclaimed demons, with Senate President Ahmed Lawan falling a little short of waxing lyrical. Lawan's excitement is, however, not shared by many, it seems. Rivers West Senator Betty Apiafi holds strongly that the host communities of Nigeria's oil wells have been handed a very poor deal.
It was very wrong for the National Assembly or the Senate not to have passed the 5%, at least 5% for host communities, because I think 3% was very low. We tried to make a case, and there was really an agreement that we were going to pass 5%, but somewhere along the line, the last minute, people change their minds for what I would think is the wrong reasons. It's actually, I don't think anybody is looking at what is happening in the oil producing areas, the amount of devastation that's happening to vegetations, and the fact that there hasn't been any remediation in those areas for almost from the start of oil production.
Some of Apiafi's colleagues, however, seem to see things a little differently on this subject.
People need to know 3% of what and what is the value and what is the reason behind 3%. The basic thing is 3% of OPEX, operation expenses of the oil companies. And the higher it is, the less likely that you get investors to come. The agreement on 3% was not just arbitrary. It was based on the fact that, based on expert advice to the Senate, that will be about what will enable investors to come. If you don't bake the cake, there will be nothing to share.
It's not concluded, because we still have opportunity to look at what we did. Because after the passage by the House of Reps and then by the Senate, 5% the other way, 3% the other way, we still have opportunity for conference. And by the time we reach at conference, we'll know whether we in the Senate made a mistake or the people in the House of Reps were right. But I know we'll get it right at the end of the day.
Where we are now is a situation where there are two positions that have been passed by the two chambers of the National Assembly. 3% by the Senate, 5% by the House of Representatives. Now the next thing is the formation of a conference committee that will now iron out and get the final of what we are going to adopt as the National Assembly of this country. So I think it would be inappropriate for me to comment on that. I need to wait for the system to play out its role. That is, waiting for the conference committee to do the final, to take the final decision.
The talk of using 30% of NNPC's profits in search for oil has been received in different ways across the vast, polarized Nigerian people. Senators Betty Apiafi and Barau Jibrin are unsurprisingly among those who do not see eye to eye on this one, particularly as there is talk of larger chunk of these funds going into exploring for oil in the north.
If it makes people feel good that they want to explore in other places, fine, you can do that, but I think 30% is high all the same. But they can really continue with the exploration. They've been doing that for donkey years, and we're wasting a lot of money because we haven't made any findings. But for me, at this critical moment when we hardly have enough money to fund our budget, and we are excessively borrowing. It's something that we could put a stop for a while and then maybe start again after we improve our income base. Right now, the revenue base of the country is really in a shambles.
And what's wrong in making sure we develop other areas that we can exploit our natural resources? Once these resources are exploited, and then exploited, the money comes to Nigeria as a whole, as an entity. So what's wrong with that? If I get some money and say, okay, let me go for exploration, and when I get the mineral resources, then I exploit it, that will create jobs, that will create revenue, that will create everything good for the entire nation. It's not going to be to the benefit of the area alone. So I think there's no need for all these arguments here and there.
Concurrence with the House of Representatives is the next step in the journey of the PIB, and with the Senate having set up its conference committee to have a second look at the document, what is now left to be seen is whether the growing disquiet in many quarters can be effectively handled. Godfrey Eshamoge, Galaxy News, Abuja.